a little questionable. What does that mean for, playing, field and boundary, all that kind of stuff? No. I'm not going there. I'm just going, okay, cornerback to wherever. What does that mean now for a secondary in the league?
Well, and I also think that there's been, I think this is a double-edged sword. There's been value and a hierarchy attached to specific positions, especially when you're talking about first-round picks. We're not going to see a lot of offensive guards go. Like, you have to be an all-time elite prospect to go on the top 10 like Quentin Nelson did as an interior offensive lineman.
Yep.
Like, you have to, it's like that guy is a first-team all-pro.
Right.
If you're going to take him at number 8, which Quentin Nelson was. He was a first-team all-pro as a rookie.
Yep.
But I do think that there's a reason why we've seen I always go back to this, but like the Ravens have not had a top 10 pick to my recollection in the last 10 or 15 years. But the Ravens draft a great player because the Ravens, it's actually ironic. When they're not picking in the 20s, if they're picking in the 20s, it's because they have a stacked team and they probably were just on a long playoff run. But most often in the last decade, they've been picking in the teens, the late teens. But they have always just gone out and gotten the best defensive guy for need. And that's why they get guys like C.J. Mosley, like Terrell Suggs, that are the best player at their position, but they're not that left tackle, that press man corner, that quarterback. But they don't need that guy because that's where they're picking. And then you see, on the flip side of that, you see teams like, the Jets or for a while there, the Browns who just are picking, they're always in the top 5. They're just spinning their wheels trying to pick their next franchise quarterback, and it just kind of matriculates completely out of control on them. The Vikings are a great example this year. The Vikings have, I think, the 16th pick. There's going to be a really good cover corner available at that spot. There's going to be probably the best or second best running back in the draft available at that spot. But the Vikings, if I'm the Vikings, you got to bite the bullet, and you have to just draft the best offensive lineman available. It doesn't matter if he's a center, a tackle, whatever. You have to, because that was their number one weakness last year, is their offensive line. And I think that's where teams just get so backwards. Like the Packers have been so fascinating because the Packers have needed to draft guys on the back end defensively, and they have. But the guys that they've drafted, they go out of their way to draft the guys that have flaws. Like the kid from Iowa, he was slow. And I think that the 40 times are overblown in certain ways. Like, to me, it doesn't matter that Cooper Kupp runs a 4.59 40 because Cooper Kupp's spatial awareness and his ability to separate is so elite. Mm-hmm. That kid from Iowa ran a 4.59 40, though. That's the one spot where your 40 time is your job. Like, if you run a 4.59 as an NFL corner, you're not an NFL corner.
Correct.
You're not. And that kid from Iowa that they drafted at corner 2 years ago, he can't play because he's not fast enough. Kevin King, great player in college at the University of Washington. He's hurt. The Packers still drafted him. So I think that these teams kind of get in their own way, and they can't get out of their own way often. Let's rap about these guys that we like.
Hold on. I want to say my second thing that I like about the draft, and then we will rap about some dudes. Second thing I like about the draft, and it's the reason that I watch the draft, it's the human drama, man. You rarely get to see a person realize a dream in a moment, And
right.
all these 22 kids that are going to the draft, and plenty of others, 200 and 67 or something like that, other guys, around the country, they get a call that for all of the work and all the effort that they've put in, and you could talk about, especially of course at the top of the draft, the great God-given, physical gifts that they've been given, talent, speed, all that stuff. But they've honed it. They deserve the credit for the work that they've done, but also just the moment of realizing a dream, man. And that is, to me, a special and powerful thing. I can't stand – I should say I can't say – I have plenty of things in which I think that the commissioner of the NFL, Roger Goodell, is flawed and does a poor job at times, and even I think somewhat of an untoward part to some of the things he does at times as well. But I love the fact that he, at the draft, goes out there, greets every guy, and it's a hug, and it's a congratulations in the thing. And you can think that it's not you, but people can think that it's disingenuous, that it's pomp and circumstance, that it's a photo op, that it's whatever it is. I think being welcomed into a league by a commissioner, and it happens in all the sports, more or less, is a moment that if any one of us got to have it's a lifelong moment. It does not, like all the stuff that happens afterwards and everything like that, you get to do something that is really special, that is on a hugely national stage, and it is, I think it's cool, and I love jumping into the spirit of this kind of stuff from the human element, the human aspect of it, and that's what I like about the draft. That's what gets me going about it.
And especially when you're talking about football and the NFL draft, because so many kids come from rural and disenfranchised and or just straight poor. Sometimes they're not even disenfranchised. There's just no resources to be had anywhere in their communities. And that moment is just so profound. I agree. That's like my favorite part. Like when you get the kid that's from, middle of nowhere Mississippi, who grinded it out, and like he's doing this for his mom and his grandma. His mom and his grandma are there, and they're crying, and it's spectacular.
And some guys have a level of expectation. Yeah, I knew I was going to be here. Some guys are fourth-generation NFL players. They had money their whole life. Okay, that's fine, but there's plenty of guys, like you said, who their universe just changed. They quote-unquote won the lottery today. You know what I mean?
And football, it's even...
And they deserve it.
And football, it's just... there's such a gigantic element of luck to get to this point, because you could be the greatest player in the world, and if you just blow your knee, it's just over for you. Yeah. I mean, this day and age, people can come back from injuries so much more effectively than in the past, but still, there's been many a tragic story of guys that have not been able to come back. So I agree. I think it's football, it comes with so much risk. It takes so much courage. And so I do think that even when you do just break down the door, like you're saying, it's such a paramount moment, such an emotional moment. I love it too.
Tootell, Nuanez, ESPN Radio, Skyline Sports 2, Skyline Sports MT. Go check it out. SWX Montana Television. You said, Coulter, I want you to come up with 5 guys that are interesting to you in the draft. This is not your top 5 prospects. This isn't, best at position. This is just guys that you are paying attention to. I thought it was a good question. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. So everybody who listens to this show knows who my number one guy that I'm looking at is. My favorite player for, 11 years.
Say it, because I think he's a great example of we can extrapolate on him. Yep.
Ed Oliver, D-tackle, Houston. All-American as a true freshman at Houston.
First 5-star recruit in the history of the 5-star rankings, which have only been around for 13 years, that went to a non-Power 5 school.
Correct. Stayed home. He's from Houston, went to Houston. He was, of course, recruited by whoever now is the head coach at Texas, who was the head coach at Houston. Name's escaping me. But was able, stayed there. And
Todd Herman.
I watched this kid play his second, third, fourth game, whatever it is, ever as a college player. He was the best player on the field by a country mile at an interior defensive line. I'm a dope. I am a fan. I follow the football. I know the quarterbacks. I know the wide receivers. I know the running. That's what I'm into. Show me that thing. I couldn't stop watching Ed Oliver. He's had some injury. His production has gone down, has dipped a bit. And this is, again, the level of expectation that we talk about, because as a freshman, you are sitting here going, this is the example of the guy who could go one and done in the NFL. This is the kid who could be 19 and playing in the NFL. He's like 6'4", 285. He runs a sub-540.
He's 6'1", that's the problem.
285. But he's gigantic, and he runs a sub-540. He has not been as productive in terms of actually getting sacks as people thought that he would be, and he has been a little dinged up. His stock has fallen because it started off as the can't-miss number 1 pick in the draft 2 years ago. I don't know where he's going to go. He's certainly a first-day guy. He may be a top 10 guy, but because I have been so interested and on Eddie O for his entire college career, I am very interested personally to see how he ends up and where he ends up going, because he is now, he might be the 3rd or 4th at his position right now. Admittedly, defensive tackle is a very, very deep class this season, this draft class.
Some things they say: elite athlete with high-end foot quickness, agility, fluidity, built low and plays with leverage on his side, as twitchy and as sudden as any interior or defensive lineman you will ever see. Those are great scouting
notes.
here's the two things I want to say about Ed Oliver that I think he's such a microcosmic example of what we're talking about. Right now, Ed Oliver's two best comps in the league, and the two comps that he's getting from everybody that's scouting this, are Aaron Donald and John Randall.
It's bad news. News.
So if Ed Oliver isn't one of the three greatest pass rushing D tackles in the history of football, he's a bust. Like, that's crazy.
Right.
That's crazy. Like, I get the comp is because he plays with
How
John.
He's built.
He plays with John Randall's motor and agility, and he's built like those two guys. He's short, and I mean, he at the combine he was 6'1 3/4, 287 pounds. That's almost identical to Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, this comes down to how do you transform yourself. Aaron Donald was bad hips, low pad, bad pad level, too fat, too short. And that's why he was a completely inconsequential player coming out of Pitt. And then Aaron Donald fell in love with himself and then fell in love with his ability to transform himself. And now he is a Hall of Famer because of his own personal work ethic. So you never know how this is going to go. The other part I want to point out about Ed Oliver that I think is crazy is we put these kids under these just insane microscopes. Like last year, Demetrius Geis, somehow NFL teams heard a rumor. Demetrius Geis was the running back from LSU. There was a bunch of rumors going around that Demetrius Geis might be gay. And all his interviews, they badgered him about it. And he said, it doesn't, first of all, who cares? And second of all, like, why is this a part of the interview? It's not. It shouldn't be. This is America. What does my sexuality matter at all? But because he was confrontational, is what the scouts said in those interviews, he fell out of the first round. That kind of stuff's ridiculous. Ed Oliver was wearing a coat. He was hurt this year down the stretch. He was wearing one of the big shell coats with the hood up during practice, and his coach told him to take it off, and him and Ed Oliver got into a big confrontation over it. Well, now Ed Oliver's a bad character guy in the eyes of the scouts. His stock is plummeting. I just think all that stuff's crazy. But then I also think you can read into, why did a kid that was a 5-star recruit stay home in Houston? Is it a positive thing, like he wanted to be near his family? Or does he have a bad circle? That's a bad influence. And so there's just so many different things you can extrapolate. But Ed Oliver's is such a great example of way too high of expectations on a guy, because I think Ed Oliver's going to come in the league and be an instant starter, and if he puts it all together, I think he has a chance to be a star. I've been giving you crap forever all about this guy because you've been so obsessed with him. But I mean, I think he's an elite player.
Yeah.
But are the expectations going to be too high? And also, how much of all this swirling is the character stuff everybody's talking about? Is it of consequence or not? Because when you find that it is of consequence, that can be incredibly detrimental to a guy's career. But also, sometimes it's detrimental to his career without actually being a thing of consequence.
And, I mean, especially the college thing, he came to play for a guy that wasn't his coach the last 2 seasons.
Right.
And that's influential as well. Okay, go ahead. You do one. I don't know how much we're going to get through. We'll try
we're just going to roll us into the next segment. How about we just give away some Alpine Touch right now?
No, we got time.
Got a couple minutes? Okay. My number one favorite guy is Josh Allen. Josh Allen's the D-end / outside linebacker from Kentucky.
Yep.
I was talking to my brother about this. We both kind of agree that he was just he has Javon Curse, DeMarcus Ware like measurables. But the thing I think that is different about Josh Allen is, to me, he's the perfect prospect because he was the guy he was nothing and made himself into something. And if he can continue to harness that drive, his ceiling is outside the atmosphere. I mean, it's unbelievable. Because the kid, he was a 6'3", 215-pound skinny guy who was a 2-star recruit who had one Power 5 offer, Kentucky. Well, then he goes and grows 2 inches, puts on 60 pounds, maintains his agility. I mean, his combine was one of the great combines ever. He did 39 reps, had a 39-inch vertical, and ran a sub 4.6 40 as a D-end. Insane. 6'6", 275 pounds. I just think that, but then listening to his story too. I mean, he's a very articulate, well-spoken guy. He was a great student. He seems like he's a perfect locker room fit. There's just he has all the intangibles, but also I think the fact that he wasn't the child star, so to speak, he wasn't the 5-star guy. He wasn't getting all the hype. He wasn't on all the covers of the recruiting magazines. He had to go to Kentucky. And here's the other thing, is the production element of this whole thing. Like I said, if you have all these measurables and then you don't produce at the college level, why? Well, this guy did. He was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. He had 17 sacks last year. So not only does he have all the physical measurables, but he also has the production to back it up.
When a team does what Kentucky did, that we're a team that is traditionally a mid or low like just a doormat, all of a sudden explodes, especially in the SEC, which just basically never happens. But when Kentucky goes out and wins 9 or 10 games or whatever,
they were in the top 20 for a moment.
Kentucky, Georgia, second to last week of the season was the game of the week
in the country.
Yes. When that happens, I take a long, hard look at the dudes on that team,
right?
Because all of a sudden, that's more than just, okay, great talent. There's a cultural shift happening, at least for one season. Who knows if Kentucky's all of a sudden going to, roll out there and be, great or something like that. But I think that speaks more to them than simply to your point, more to them than simply just like, 5-star recruit, all the tangibles and stuff. There's a depth to it. Okay, we will roll this into the next segment. We'll go on some other guys. We'll also get into the Frank Clark trade. Before we do that, though, we got to give away some Alpine Touch. I'm trying to keep it going for everybody around here. We got hats, we got spices, we got the Grand Slam deal. Coulter, let them know.
So I've actually been saying it wrong. That package we've been giving you is actually the Big 4 Mountain Flavors package. This bad daddy is the Grand Slam. So the only difference is there's just a couple different flavors. This one right here, you got the pepper blend, you got the all-purpose, you got the prairie fire, and you got the hickory smoked. A little bit bigger jars here as well, but these are money.
That could last me a whole week.
Last a normal human, couple years. Last Gus Tootell, 10 days. The all-purpose, though, this is the money. This is the moneymaker right here. This is the one you need. Put it on anything. So right now, give us a call, 329-1899. Give Tommy your name, phone number, and address, and we'll send you a Grand Slam package here as well as an Alpine Touch hat. We got gray, we got black, all sorts of different things. But call right now, 329-1899, Grand Slam package. Get these bad daddies right now, $19.99, any retail location around the state.
Hi, boys and girls. Ryan Tootell
and Coulter Nuanez
from Tootell and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio, from your very favorite Tootell and Nuanez podcast, and now officially Gracious Mercy on television statewide.
That's right. We've been doing a radio show and a podcast since August of 2017, and now it's time for us to expand our reach into statewide television on SWX.
We're on SWX every weekday from 4 to 6 live on your televisions. It's available on channel 199 on Spectrum Cable or on 23.3 on your antenna television, and you can download the Watch SWX app and get us that way on your phones and devices as well.
And of course, we'll still be right here, 102.9 ESPN Radio from Missoula in the Bitterroot Valley. And as always, you can find the podcast, the live stream, and everything else you need, 1029ESPN.com.
Coulter, do you think that we're spreading ourselves too thin? Are we going to saturate these people and they're just going to start hating us, the inevitable backlash of the great heights to which we have now attained?
No chance. Tootell Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show.
Alpine Touch is legendary around the state of Montana for providing delicious seasonings for every grilling occasion. Now, Alpine Touch offers so much more, from a savory new barbecue sauce to spicy pepper blends to tasty barbecue rubs. In addition to the classic, Alpine Touch has a variety of seasoning salts for whatever you need to spice up. Now that the holidays are over, Alpine Touch makes a perfect thank you gift to show your friends and relatives you love them. Alpine Touch, available at retail locations around Montana or online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Lithia Ford of Missoula is proud to announce that they have donated a new Ford Transit van to the Boys and Girls Club of Missoula County. This marks the club's first new 15-passenger van. Without safe and reliable transportation, the 440 youth the club serves every year would not be able to access their 5 after-school clubhouses or 9-week summer club. It's groups like this that make a significant difference in our community, and Lithia Ford of Missoula is proud to be a partner in their effort. Be sure to give them a good honk and a friendly wave when you see them.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
Need your daily pick-me-up? And boy, does Town Pump have a deal for you. Get up to 24 ounces of Stonehouse coffee for only $1.39. Add in some donuts for only 99 cents. Your morning just got a whole lot better. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Town Pump, right down the road.
Hey folks, Ryan Tootell here, and I'm with Josh from the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, if our listeners have been injured in an accident, how can you help?
We're here to help you after a car accident by negotiating with insurance companies, recovering lost wages if you have any, and even getting you into a rental car if you need one. Call us today for a free consultation, and we'll get started helping you right away.
If you need help, get a hold of the Advocates. Call Josh at 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. Behind Alex Canelopoulos' strong play at number one singles and doubles, the Montana men's tennis team surged to an upset victory over Southern Utah, 6-1 at the Peak Racket Club in Missoula on Sunday. With the win, Montana earned a spot into this week's Big Sky Conference tournament for the 30th year in a row. The Grizz bounced back from a heartbreaking loss to Montana State last week to earn the number 5 seed in this week's tournament in Phoenix. UM takes on Portland State at 9 a.m. Thursday morning. For more on Montana's tennis season, check out this week's ESPN Roundtable with Grizz head coach Jason Brown.
Oisin Shafferty's joining us on that one as well.
Shaffrey,
I almost got it. God, I was so proud of myself.
You were there.
Sacramento State led wire-to-wire route to the Big Sky Conference Women's Golf Team Championship. Hornets shot a cumulative 3 over as a team. Montana State, they placed 6th. Montana was 10th. MSU senior Claire Dipmore, the highest placer from in-state. She was 8th with a 3-round total of 3 over. freshman Kylie Esch, who's a Loyola product, opened up with a 74 on Friday's first round, closed with a 73 on Sunday. She finished tied for 24th.
Belgrade native Allie Wise will be competing in the women's rifle at the second International Shooting Sport Federation World Cup of the season in Beijing. Wise claimed silver in the women's air rifle at the Championships of the Americas in Mexico in November. She is trying to clinch a spot on Team USA for the 2020 Olympic Games. Frank Clark is a Kansas City Chief, and some more dudes getting drafted this week. Tootell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. Outstanding to be with you. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Thanks for spending some time with us on your radios, on your televisions, wherever you may be, whatever.
And on the YouTube.
On the YouTube.
Also on the YouTube. I have not promoted the YouTube today. That's on me. YouTube channel up. Tootell Nuanez got our own station. That's the thing. I don't want to be on a channel. I want to be the doggone channel. You know what I mean? Thank you.
We got it now.
We got it. Great work, Tommy. We'll iron out some of the stuff. It'll be easy. At Gus Tootell on Twitter. That's me. At 1029 ESPN and at Skyline Sports. Thank you for restarting my computer and getting it running, Tommy. Appreciate that very much. Excellent work in the background.
Is the jack on back there? Is it functioning?
The jack?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You are in the Jack studio.
Oh, yeah, it appears.
Does it say on air or off air?
What am I looking at here, Tommy? That's a great question.
on the next gen. Do you have any information on it?
Yeah, I got a frowny face, but I can see it now.
All right.
I'll
be back.
See the stuff.
If it's frowning, I'll be back.
Okay. I mean, I just couldn't move my mouse. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't even know why I have this thing up. Let's say on air. I don't know if I've ever been on the radio. I'm in the studio. For all I know, I've been talking to myself here for 4.5 years. How do I know?
With the microphone off most of the time, too.
Yeah. Just keep going and then just do some of that, and then it comes back.
Oh, my gosh. Let's talk about the NFL.
Okay.
People think we're such idiots.
No, nobody does. Here's what let's do. Before we get into the Frank Clark thing, I want to run through these last guys because I did so much work. I want it to pay off. Instead of going one at a time, I'm just going to give you the other 4 guys after Ed Oliver that I'm interested in this NFL draft. And again, this is my own personal what I'm interested in. Why? I am interested in Greedy Williams, cornerback from LSU. Why? 2 reasons. LSU is, to a real extent, cornerback U. They got DBs galore playing in the Bayou, and Greedy might be the next one. Also,
this is such a good name.
The man's name is Greedy, 100%. There's been some great ones, right? Quentin Jammer playing cornerback.
That's a good one.
I mean, how can you? How great is that? There's some
Champ
others.
Bailey.
There's some
Boss
some great
Bailey.
ones. But to be a cornerback who is supposedly going to, make some interceptions, to be Greedy Williams, yes. This looks like an all-pro in front of me. Christian Wilkins, I've been interested in from the day that he won the national championship 2 years ago, grabbed his toe, lifted it up above his head, and fell to the ground in the splits and did not immediately expire. Like, I was so impressed with that feat of athleticism by a 300-pound man that now I have been on Christian Wilkins, and he went from being kind of a spot guy on that defensive line to being one of the group of what was the best defensive line in college football, and maybe one of the best defensive line groups ever at the college football level. And even without whoever was suspended for the national championship, they came in there. And
Dexter Lawrence.
Even without Dexter Lawrence, who was considered to be the best of the group.
That's the craziest part. We're talking about
rocked Alabama.
We talk about character issues or perceived character issues or whatever. Dabo Swinney, probably even Christian Wilkins would tell you that Dexter Lawrence is the best guy on that team, and he's going to be the guy that's the third drafted guy. The Farrell kid's going to be second. I mean, as far as the Clemson D linemen go, they're going to have 3 D linemen in the first round, and Lawrence is still going to be a top 25 pick.
Sure.
But it's just interesting the little things that impact all this stuff.
Totally. Well, I loved Clemson this year. I loved that defensive line, so he's sort of a representative of the group for me. 2 other guys that maybe are not getting the shine at the top of the draft, but we will see. Well, one of them is. But I'm very interested to see where Bryce Love goes. Mm-hmm. Bryce Love was the revelation after Christian McCaffrey, graduated from Stanford. He comes in. Christian McCaffrey sets the all-time rushing record, only to have it broken the next year. This is in a single game record, by Bryce Love. And Bryce Love goes up, and he's just the next progression of the unbelievable running, home run hitting, and pass-catching running backs. Well, guess what? He wasn't as good a pass receiver as Christian McCaffrey turned out to be, and by the way, who is? And also had just awful injury situation. And so he just could not stay healthy, could not stay on the field. I thought he showed tremendous toughness in the way that he fought through some of that stuff, but he's a guy who was maybe the guy, the number 1 running back, maybe even a top 15 type of pick, who is now like a mid-draft, like a 3rd, 4th, 5th, I don't know, round guy. But I think when you talk about the upside that he could bring to a team, I think this has a ton of potential. Obviously, it's about the durability. He is undersized, and he has a very bad history when it comes, especially to feet, ankles, all that kind of stuff. But when he's right, he is unstoppable. And so I'm really interested in him. And the last guy I got is Byron Murphy, who was a 5-star cornerback recruit. I always try and pay attention to the University of Washington and what they're doing, especially what they're doing on defense. And he is a sophomore, dude, coming out because he redshirted, so he's done his 3 years after high school. He's a potential top 10 guy. He's going to be going on Thursday, and he could be going early on Thursday. He's a great player, so incredibly young, and a guy that I've watched for the 2 years that he actually played at Washington in awe. And so I love this kid, and I'll be whatever team gets him, I think is going to be very happy with that get.
I think that this is such a stacked draft class.
Yeah,
and it's lacking the pizzazz on the national level because of the quarterbacks. Because you're going to have this unorthodox, electric, but potentially gigantic bust go number 1 in Kyler Murray, and the other guys.
Dwayne Haskins is.
I wouldn't draft if I had a 1st-round pick. I would not draft Daniel Jones or Dwayne Haskins or Drew Lock. I'd just wait till next year.
Yeah, I think Haskins could.
He could be okay. He could. No, I know, but he could be okay. But if you could draft any of these other guys we're talking about, or him, and then next year be in the mix for Trevor Lawrence or Jake Fromm, or
you think Trevor Lawrence is an NFL player?
I mean, there's a lot of dudes when I look at them like that guy's league, and I just never. It always makes me weary. Like I didn't know who Drew Lock was until this process. So how is he going to be good in the NFL? I don't know.
He was at Missouri. Okay,
guys, I got.
Yeah, give me your 4.
Devin White from LSU. I always talk about. You always say, how much does a pro day or a combine hurt or help you? I think it either reaffirms what people think about you or reinforces maybe your weaknesses. But it's always about, did you hurt yourself or help yourself with your individual workout? And how does it compare to the film? If you have a great individual workout, but your film's not very good, concerning. If you have great film, but your individual workout is not that great, probably not as big of a deal. Devin White's film is as good as it gets. He's got as good of a nose for the football as you will find. He is absolutely fearless the way he flies around as an inside linebacker. Then you tell me the guy runs a 4.42, one of the fastest 40s in the history of the combine for linebackers. He's got 39-inch vertical, broad jumps 11 feet. Sign him up.
Yep.
He's the type of guy where this is where we're talking about value, right? There's going to be left tackles and corners and quarterbacks that are drafted over this guy. He's better than all those guys. He's a straight-up NFL starter day one. He will be one of the 10 best inside linebackers in the league next year, automatically, as long as he doesn't get in trouble, he doesn't get hurt, because he's got that sort of skill set. Josh Jacobs, the running back from Alabama, I think he has a tremendous story. He was homeless. He had a kid when he was really young, a teenager, and he's persevered from all of that. I mean, that's going to be one of those moments where, when he gets drafted, because he's one of those guys that's kind of in murky waters, right? Nobody really knows if he's going to go. He could go as high as 12th, and he could maybe fall out of the first round, just depending on how the running back stuff goes. But if and when he's drafted on Thursday night, it's going to be tears galore. You know it is, because what a story to go from basically living on the street to NFL draft pick. Insane. I also love the Quinnen Williams kid from Alabama. His NFL draft tracker, his NFL scouting profile, I thought had some of the most – because so often – there was actually a funny Deadspin article about how often Mel Kiper and Todd McShay used the same words. Great burst, great hips, great low center of gravity,
Bend.
Yeah, right. Long levers. The Williams kid had the most unique one I've ever read. They said that, first of all, I compared him to a heat-seeking missile when he's chasing down ball carriers. I thought that was such a great description, because there's all sorts of ways to play on the interior defensive line, as a gap guy, as a plug guy, as a disruptor, as a double teams guy, as an inside pass rusher like Aaron Donald. Williams is a playmaker. He actually goes, he can shed the block and make the tackle. He doesn't have to clean it up for anybody else. He can actually go get the ball carrier. And watching his drills and stuff, I mean, you never seen a fat man that's so fast. Mm-hmm. He's unbelievable. Like his shuttle stuff, you're like, how are you moving like that? How do you stop on a dime when you weigh 313 pounds? It's unbelievable. But the other thing I thought that was such an interesting scout was they said the quickness, the power, but most importantly, the accuracy of his hand punching was the best they've ever seen. How accurate he is with where he hits you. Yeah. That's coaching. That's Alabama. And so that's why I think, there's a lot of talk on, can he maintain the weight he's at right now? Is he big enough to actually endure playing as a true 4-3 D tackle? I think it doesn't matter, because I think he's athletic enough and he's ferocious enough to do it. And then my last guy is obviously, it's just a hometown guy, Keelan Doss. Keelan Doss pulled his pec at the NFL Combine. UC Davis wide receiver, for those who don't know who I'm talking about. But the guy's production was insane the last couple of years. I mean, he caught 220 passes the last 2 years. And the second year, this last year, as a senior, I talked to Tim Plow. He's one of my good sources in the league, UC Davis offensive coordinator. But he was saying that the amount of coverage schemes that teams were throwing at Doss was just insane. But Tim Plow also on this show told us about how complex UC Davis's offense is, how many NFL concepts they're running. So I think that makes Doss ready day one from a mental standpoint. But then after he pulled his pec at the Combine, he didn't do any of the running stuff. So everybody's wondering, okay, the guy's 6'3", 215. He's got the production. He's got the size. But
is he the athlete that he needs to be?
The magic question always with FCS receivers is, how slow are they? Because if you run a 4.6 in the FCS, you're fast. You're fast enough to be fast.
Yeah.
Keenan Curran's playing fast. Keenan Curran cost 29 touchdowns. Keenan Curran on his pro day ran, I think, a 4.65, because that's the other thing that people have a little misconception about.
People think 4.4, okay, that's quick. No. 4.4 is just the fastest person you've ever met in your whole
100%.
life. Ever.
Like all these kids that say they run 4.4s on their high school scouting.
Get out of here.
You do not,
Get out
dude.
of here with it.
You do not run a 4.4.
If you run a 4.65,
you're so fast.
I'm getting eaten by the bear, and you will be free,
right,
and you will have a nice life.
And so Keelan Doss ran a 4.44 at 6'3", 215 pounds. He's got elite speed.
Yes.
And so, Yeah, and the other thing is he can play all three positions. So I think Doss, I think he's probably going to be like a third or fourth round pick, but I think that he is going to be an NFL contributor day one because he's going to be so similar to what Cooper Kupp was last year, where he can play X, he can play Y, he can play Z, he can move all around. He can run option routes from the inside. He can run option routes on the outside. He can beat you at the point of attack. He showed that he can go over the top with that speed. I just think he's going to be – Keelan Doss is going to be a sleeper fantasy pick next year. He's going to be a guy that catches footballs for a team because I just really think that he has the broad skill set that teams are looking for.
It's a unique circumstance when we sit here, we follow the NFL, we love the NFL, we watch it all the time, and we have this sort of general understanding, as NFL fans do, of the teams in the NFL and maybe specifically the few teams that we follow really, really closely. It's a unique circumstance in what we do, where if a guy's going out of the Big Sky Conference, we have a very good understanding of the individual and what the team is getting out of them, much better than anyone else. Like when Keelan Doss gets picked, if his name comes out, the fan base for that team is going to boo horrifically. UC Davis, FCS football, get him out. What are we doing? Why are we wasting our time when we could have had this guy from the Big Ten, this guy from the AC, whatever it is? But the fit is going to be an exciting one, an interesting one, and where he goes, and especially when you think about any time a wide receiver, who's throwing the football, what's their situation like, who's the coach there, how's that going to work, and it'll be fun to see with him, when he goes, and presumably he will go at some point, to see where that landing spot is and how that would go, because Cooper Kupp's a great receiver. Also, he could not have been placed at a better place in the history
100%.
of the world than to be at the Los Angeles Rams with Sean McVay as a slot receiver and building that rapport with Jared Goff. So, okay, we will get to the Frank Clark stuff in the next hour. We'll come back to it. But first, we got the Riverbank Run, 47th annual, coming up to this weekend. Excuse me, not tomorrow. It'll be Saturday in Missoula, starting at 9 a.m. Kat Francino, who is the marketing director for the YMCA, joining us on that. Golter, I'm tired. I don't like my house. Maybe I love my house and I want people there. Where do I send them? Where do they need to go?
And if you're coming to town for the Riverbank Run, this could be a perfect place for you to stay. If you're coming to town for business as well, could be a great place for you to stay as well. The Wingate by Wyndham in Missoula truly offers something for everybody. Wingate has an awesome water park, sweet water slides for families, groups, and birthday parties, but also terrific business rate, large meeting spaces for you and your clients, and one of the best reward programs you'll find anywhere. So if you got anybody coming to town, send them to the Wingate by Wyndham. If you got some people in town and you just want to go have a meeting out there, great meeting spaces, great meeting rooms, and very business-friendly with business travel rates as well as local business rates as well. Let the Wingate by Wyndham in Missoula make you feel at home even when you're not.
Good news. Missoulians can finally move into what we love best, being outside. Garden City Paint and Glass can help you get a head start on all those outside home improvement projects. Now is also a great time to start getting a jump on cracked windows and broken screens. Enjoy up to 25% off select products. And be sure to watch for PPG rebates to help the job along. Look good, stay comfortable, and keep energy costs down at Garden City Paint and Glass. 3217 Brooks or 549-0608.
The Montana Club invites you to stop in for Club Cocktail Hour. Every day from 3 to 6, sip on $5 martinis. Get $1 off all wine and beer, including cool Montana micros. Enjoy $3 off all mouth-watering appetizers, or swing by Friday for Montini Night and perfectly mixed $5 top shelf martinis from 3 to close. It's time to relax at the Montana Club. Real Montana, real food on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
It's time for the spring tire sale at Les Schwab. Save up to $200 depending on tire size and type on a set of 4 tires, including the Open Country AT2 and MT, some of our previous best sellers. Of course, you'll get the warranty we've stood behind for 65 years at no extra charge. And now you can book an appointment online at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Limited warranty conditions apply. For details, visit leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
If you need to buy a car, go to Flanagan's. Stevens Avenue is where they are. Go to Flanagan's. Flanagan's. FLANHEAN
Big Sky Breakdown at SkylineSportsMT.com continues to give you the inside look from around the Big Sky Conference and the state of Montana. The most in-depth podcast in the Treasure State gives you multiple episodes each week year-round with commentary, analysis, interviews, and entertainment from around one of the most storied conferences in the West.
Whether it's full uncut interviews with Montana State head football coach Jeff Choate or Travis DeCure's thoughts on his outstanding Montana men's basketball team, everything you need to hear is available on the Big Sky Breakdown. Take a look inside the best stories in the conference and the most detailed analysis in the state. The Big Sky Breakdown, it has you covered.
Whether it's X's and O's acumen of Brooks Nuanez or the comedic banter of Ryan Tootell or the dry humor of Andrew Houghton.
And don't forget the best connections to everybody that matters in the sports world across the Big Sky Conference from Colton Nuanez. And by the way, thank you for calling me funny.
You're welcome. The Big Sky Breakdown will present you with all of it and more at SkylineSportsMT.com.
The Big Sky Breakdown, proudly presented by Town Pump Food Stores and Selway Armory.
Tootell and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula. Now from the Kurtz Polaris studio, here is Ryan Tootell and Colter Nuanez.
Tootell and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Just like always, right on time. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for being with us. We're broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. We are happy to have had Kat Francino in with us earlier today. She is the marketing director for the Missoula YMCA. Missoula is hosting its, are you ready, 47th annual Riverbank Run this Saturday. So she came in and talked to us about it. Scheduling was such she couldn't be here live, but we wanted to bring this to you because this is a very cool community Western Montana event that happens every year. It brings in runners from a lot of different places and is for a good cause, but also just a fun thing for the community that we do every year. And running, marginally athletic. We want to highlight that on this show, even if two of us are not all that good at it.
I'm great at sprinting, just not jogging.
We'll discuss this further. But for now, here you go, Kat Francino.
Welcome into the studio, the marketing director for your Missoula YMCA, Kat Francino. Hi, Kat. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing,
Good.
Ryan?
Thanks for being here with us. And you are here once again to talk to us about the Riverbank Run, which is coming up this weekend, the 47th in a row that's been happening. How about that?
I can't even believe it. I don't even know where this month has gone. So the fact that we're already on number 47 after all these years, so it's really exciting. We're pumped.
The Riverbank Run is obviously, for people who are in and around from Missoula, they know that it's out there. It's obviously an event that everybody's sort of aware of that happens. But if people haven't participated in this, tell them about it. Like what makes this a unique and fun event for the city?
So aside from being Missoula's oldest foot race, it's a great time to just bring families and racers and pretty much any Missoulian who's interested into downtown Missoula, which is where we start our race at Broadway and Higgins. Then we just take off from Broadway and Higgins. We run across that bridge, and we go through the University District. We go through the University campus. It's just a really fun event, and it's such a Missoula event. We're such a town of outdoor lovers and runners and community, and the Riverbank Run really has that all.
It's there is so many things that you could say as a Missoula event, right? The trail is a Missoula radio station, and there's so many things that define Missoula. What about Missoula and the Riverbank Run has been such a great relationship that's helped it go on for almost 50 years?
I think just the fact that we have it's really an event for everyone. At the start line, we have people who've completed the Boston Marathon and do ultra marathons, and they're standing right next to someone who's pushing their kid in a stroller, and then right next to that we have a fifth grader who's going to do the 5K for the first time. So it's really, no matter who you are, there's a race for you, and it's as challenging or as fun as you want it to be. So I think that's one of the neat things about the Riverbank Run.
And there's multiple races, 10K, 5K mile, and the trifecta as well, right? The biggie. So tell everybody about the trifecta, because this is pretty interesting and unique too.
Yeah, so the trifecta is our signature event. It's for the folks who need a little more than the 5K, who need a little more than the 10K, and they just want to run all three.
Oh, the insane people.
The insane people, yes, the insane people. You know, I did it once, Ryan. It was a lot. It really hurts.
I've done it one less than that.
Yeah.
The trifecta,
Okay.
once less
One
than
less
one.
than one. Yeah, okay, I got you. So the trifecta is you start with that 10K, and you run that 10K. And then you have this break, and the break is what kills you. And then you go and you run the 5K, and then you have your second break, and then you go and run a 1 mile. And by the time you're done, you're so glad to be done, and you're so glad you've done it, and your body just hurts.
Races start at 9 a.m. with the 10K, 10 a.m. or 10:30, for the 5K, and then the 1 mile is at 11:25. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so we're going to run two miles. We're going to have
Okay.
the trifecta mile for those speed demons who are going to run it in 5 minutes. Then we're going to have a fun run mile, so for the kiddos and for folks who just want to hang out with their kids at 11:45.
For people that want to find out more, want to sign up, can they sign up day of, or do you need to sign up in advance? How does that work?
Yeah, so if you want to sign up in advance, you can go to our website, riverbankrun.org. We got all the registration information there. And then we do have day of registration. It's going to be at the start line at Higgins and Broadway. I recommend just showing up probably 30 to 40 minutes before your planned race. Make sure you get some time to sign up and get your T-shirt, and then hit the start line, do a little bit of a warm-up.
Tell us why this race is important other than the fun parts and the connection to Missoula. What sort of money do you guys, or what does the money raise, what does it contribute to, and what sort of difference can it make?
So one of the great things about the Riverbank Run is it is 100% a local race. All of the money raised stays right here in Missoula, and it goes straight back into our YMCA program. So that's our financial assistance program. That's our inclusive and adaptive program. Those are our swim lessons. Those are our summer camps. And so it's really neat to watch Missoula come together for this race to benefit the YMCA, and then in turn we turn around and we're able to bring more people into healthy programs and healthy living, and just really strengthen and build a healthier Missoula for all.
It's this Saturday. It is the 47th annual Missoula Riverbank Run. The start line is at Broadway and Higgins, so that's the collection point. Don't go to Karis Park. Don't go, wandering around, right? You got to go there to get yourself all ready, because that would be me. I'd be all by myself. Oh, I'm the only one running. I'm going to win this race. And then I find out, oh, I'm in the wrong place. So we want to make sure they get to the right spot, right, Kat?
We do. Thank you, Ryan.
It takes a lot of people to put this thing on. How many volunteers and people do you have helping out for this?
Oh my gosh, you'd ask me that question. I
don't need an exact number. Are you somewhere between 1 and 1,000, maybe?
I think we probably have, from start to finish, probably about 100 volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, go ahead and contact us as well at that riverbankrun.org website. We'd love to have you man a water station or fold some T-shirts, all that fun stuff.
Well, very good. Well, Kat, this is obviously a great event every year. I know that a lot of people look forward to it. A fun way to start your weekend, get the blood flowing. Then you're already out and about. You can go out and spend what's going to be a very nice Saturday, nice spring April Saturday, bumming around Missoula. Kat, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Really, really like talking with you guys.
Well, Kat, we like talking with you, just for the record. Kat Franchino, again, Riverbank Run this Saturday in Missoula, and a great event every year in this town. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate her for doing that. Quick break. Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2 straight ahead. NBA. What teams are stuck, what teams are not, and I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about Frank Clark. Hey, Tootell and Nuanez is on from 4 to 6 every afternoon on 102.9 ESPN Radio.
We also know that not everybody can listen to all 2 hours every single day.
Well, they should, Coulter. I mean, what else do you have to do? Take off work early, drive home slow, and sit in your driveway for 70 minutes to get the entire show.
Here's the thing. We've made it easy for everybody to listen to the show every single day whenever it's convenient for them by podcasting every show.
Well, that's nice of us.
You can listen to the full Tootell and Nuanez every single day on iTunes, the TuneIn Radio app, Spotify, and Podbean. Tootell and Nuanez, the podcast, available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel.
Hey, folks, the best season of the year is upon us. That's right, it's tax return season, and there's one place to have the most fun and make that refund check stretch further than anywhere else, Selway Armory.
Selway Armory has the largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories of anywhere around, and they have the expertise to go with it. It's not everywhere that you can shop local and save money, but Selway Armory will meet or beat any box store price, and your money stays in Montana. It's tax return time, so get more bang for your buck at Selway Armory. Visit online at selwayarmory.com.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Springtime is the time to buy a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the spring sales event, rebates go as high as $1,500 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes in a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $1,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Spring Sales event at Kurtz Polaris, 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and on Highway 83 in Sealy. The best deals on the coolest machines and all the accessories are at Kurtz Polaris and KurtzPolaris.com. Recreate the right way with Kurtz Polaris. Offer valid in U.S. through 4/30/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride. Hey folks, Ryan Tootell here, and I'm with Josh of the Advocates Injury Attorneys. Josh, what are people left dealing with after an accident?
Well, quite a few things, actually. We see people that are in pain. They still need to get to work. They need to raise their kids, and now they have to take time to go see doctors and other healthcare providers. They're frustrated with working with the insurance companies and getting the runaround. We'll take on the burden of dealing with the insurance companies so you can get the best settlement possible and get back to your life.
Find your advocate online at MontanaAdvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana. KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, boys and girls. Ryan Tootell, Colton Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. Behind Alex Kanelopoulos' strong play, the number one singles and doubles for the Montana men's tennis team, they surged to an upset victory over Southern Utah 6-1 at the Peak Racket Club in Missoula on Sunday. With the win, Montana earned a spot in this week's Big Sky Conference tournament for the 30th year in a row. The Grids bounced back from a heartbreaking loss to Montana State last week to earn the number 5 seed in this tournament in Phoenix. UM takes on Portland State at 9 a.m. Thursday morning. For more on Montana's tennis season, check out this week's ESPN Roundtable with head coach Jason Brown and Oshin Shafri.
You're better at that last one than me. Sac State led wire-to-wire en route to the Big Sky Conference Women's Golf Championship. The Hornets finished with a cumulative score of 3 over par. Montana State placed 6th at 39 over. Montana was 10th out of 11 teams at 76 over. MSU senior Claire Ditmore finished tied for 8th with a 3-round score of 3 over, the highest in-state finisher for the Cats of the Grizz. UM freshman Kylie Esch, a Loyola product, who opened with a 74 in Friday's first round, closed with a 73 on Sunday to finish tied for 24th.
Must be nice. Belgrade native Allie Weiss will be competing in the women's rifle at the second International Shooting Sport Federation World Cup of the season in Beijing. She is trying to clinch a spot on Team USA for the 2020 Olympics. Well, okay. Little delayed. So let me see if I understand this right. We're 10 minutes behind time, and we didn't get to all the things we had in the first segment, and we didn't finish saying all the things we wanted to do about the things that we did talk about.
I mean, what a surprise.
It's tough being so gifted, Tommy.
Wow.
I don't really know why. I'm trying to figure this out about myself because I'm always searching. But I just don't know why, but I just find it so fun to antagonize both of you guys. You are the two people in the world that I have the most fun.
First hour, if you missed anything in it, it's brought to us on the podcast, available at the TuneIn Radio app, iTunes, and Spotify by Wingate, by Wyndham Hotels. You can also listen on the stream, which is available on the station website, 1029ESPN.com. Station website. And the stream there is brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. We are in the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online. KurtzPolaris.com. Hi, how are you? Good to be with you. Hope you're all
YouTube
well.
Nation.
Had to, it's the only thing that I like to do. Not that I like to do. I like to do a lot of things. The only thing that I feel good about in this whole thing is my ability to push your button, literally. Off. Antagonize Tommy and me. Tommy and I are going to do a segment. It's by ourselves. It'll be fine.
Producer hat's coming out here, Ryan.
Okay.
Are you guys on a television network or anything like that? Are you on YouTube anywhere? I mean, where can people, watch?
I've heard we are. What teams are most stuck in the end? How furious is he? I mean, now I'm antagonizing. SWX Montana Television statewide. Good to be with all of you. And worldwide on YouTube television. That's right.
Live stream.
It's technically, I guess it's not. YouTube TV is a separate entity.
Yeah, no, we're just on YouTube. Go check out our YouTube channel, though. We need you to subscribe. So if you just
Nuanez?
go to YouTube, type in Tootell and Nuanez. Bam. Click the subscribe button. We got chat going on up
You can
there.
even talk to us there. Yeah.
Yep.
Coulter, of all the things I can't do, what's one thing that you know all the time I can't do? Anything more than one task at a time.
Yes, certainly.
So my ability to sit here and try and respond to these things as they come through the live chats and talk on the radio, marginal at best. But you know what? I'm going to give it my best shot, or at least in the break, respond to you. But if you want to talk, you can get on there. You can also just call us, 329-1899. All guests join us via the Rangage Brothers RV phone line. Okay, Coulter, I got to mark this out. I know this isn't the content of this particular segment, but I have to mark this out just because I thought it was so good. The Jazz-Rockets game last night was probably my favorite game of the postseason. I've been looking forward to the Thunder-Blazers series more than any other series of the 8 in the first round, and it has lived up to billing for me. I've found it to be really compelling, really interesting, and the competitiveness at the NBA just goes to another level in the playoffs as often as the case, but you can see it more in the NBA. You know, when you're watching football, the guys they never stop talking to one another. NHL, same thing. It's a little more visible because you don't have the full face mask on. But basketball, when guys are going at each other, it is out there for God and everybody to take a look at. And to watch Damian Lillard and Russell Westbrook go heads up has been great. Has been just so entertaining. But I thought last night, Donovan Mitchell and Chris Paul going just toe-to-toe, and Chris Paul having none of it, saying, "Not today, young buck," and Donovan Mitchell slapping the hardwood like he's a Duke defender, like he's playing college basketball. Go, come get some. It was awesome, and the environment, as we talked about off the top, Salt Lake had it rocking and rolling last night. Not just the basketball team, but the entire arena was absolutely on fire. And so I thought that was, to me, in terms of one game, the best game that I've seen in this postseason, and I enjoyed it very, very much. So thanks to those two teams for at least getting to a fifth game. Utah deserves to win a game in this series, it seems to me. They need to get one out of that. It's an interesting study, too, because they had a little bit of beef down the stretch and had opportunities in Game 3. And look, you didn't win the game. You got no truck. You can't say anything, if, ands, or buts. But from the outside looking in, this series is very nearly 2-2. And Houston's going to win this series. They're probably going to win it in 5 games. But I think that the Utah is going to garner confidence, not just with the win, but with what happened there at home. Now they're on the ropes. Everybody understands it's never happened before that a team down 0-3 comes back in the whole thing. But let's put it like this. There's Milwaukee being up 3-0 on Detroit is a very different disparity in what the teams are than Houston being up 3-0 on Utah, even though, again, we still agree Utah's the second best team in the West. The Utah's going to win the series, but I like this Utah team very much, and I'm glad it's at least extending one more out there. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I put on Twitter last night. There's several series in this playoffs. There's several series in every playoffs where there's a definitive cut and dry favorite that I think everybody believes is going to win. The Rockets are that in this series. But when you're down 3-0, to earn the sweep, that favorite has to win on the opposing team's home court.
Right.
And I always think it's so symbolic and indicative of the state of a team. Like the Pistons, they led late in the third quarter last night against the Bucks. But then Milwaukee surged and took control, and the Pistons just rolled over and died, and they lost by like 25 again. There's no real pride. They couldn't just.
Was it a 41-8 run? Or
yeah,
something
and
like
they couldn't just like break the
went
chain,
No.
and they couldn't just win a game and extend the series. It's almost like they wanted to go home, right? And that's where you got to give Utah a lot of credit. They're not going to win the series. The series is over. But they did have enough pride to at least win on their home court and not have the sweep be completed in front of their home fans. And I thought it was a great effort.
They went out Houston in Game 3, and Houston is a really good team. It got the better of them ultimately. But they just were relentless last night and really extended that thing out towards the end. It was a great game. So I'll look forward to Game 5. Coulter, you want to know what teams are the most stuck in the NBA? And as we talked about a little bit yesterday, there's some ways. There's multiple ways to sort of view this, but the best place to be is the best. The second best place to be, though, is the worst,
or bad with assets.
The worst place to be is average. And
like the Mavs were bad this year, right? I think they finished 11th in the West.
Okay.
They're in one of the best spots in the NBA because of the guys that they have.
Yeah. Yes.
Because they have assets. They have a young budding superstar to build around in Luka Doncic, and
we'll likely have another asset here in a couple of months.
Exactly.
So that's fine. That's well and good. So who are the teams that are in no man's land? Could the Detroit Pistons be one of these teams?
That's a good one. I think the Pistons are in a tough spot because of the game evolving and passing them by. What the Pistons' primary assets are not conducive to modern day NBA, especially in the playoffs. And we're seeing that. We just saw it. Yeah. We saw that in, I think the average margin of victory in that series, like 27 points.
Yeah, I mean, and this might have more to do with Milwaukee than it does with Detroit. I mean, that was a very bad matchup, and again, Blake Griffin being injured, significant, obviously. However, you're right. I mean, if Andre Drummond is your best player, and he is great, he's really, really good, but he is not the modern NBA guy in terms of his skill set and what he brings to the table. He's an old school center, and I'm not saying it can't be done with guys like that. It can be, but you got to have. I mean, they do have a bit of a dearth of talent when you're talking about competing with the Milwaukees and the Golden States and the top end, the NBA. But they're also much better than the Suns and some of the
right, but they're in a way worse spot than the Suns.
And that's the point. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
because their assets, quote unquote assets, are guys that are in their early 30s who aren't the future of the league, whereas the Suns have 2 and arguably 3. Compared if Josh Jackson can get back on track, they got Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Josh Jackson.
Okay, so tell me
that are guys that are under the age of 23 that are great assets. Here's the teams that I think that are stuck, and this is in no particular order. I think the Jazz are stuck because I think that Rudy Gobert is a tremendous regular season player. I think he's not a liability, but you can exploit him in the playoffs. You can draw him away from the rim, which negates much of his efficacy. I think that Donovan Mitchell is a great player. I think his true upside, or I guess Donovan Mitchell cannot be the best player on a championship team. I think Donovan Mitchell could be the second best player on a championship team. I do. And certainly a top 3 player. But they need a guy that's better than Donovan Mitchell if they want. If they had a guy that's better than Donovan Mitchell and then their 2 and 3 are Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, now you're talking. How do they get that guy, though? That's the question. And they also have a little bit of a hodgepodge of again, I think Quinn Snyder's a really good coach, and I think they have a good roster to have success in the regular season. You're going to have a hard time in the playoffs Because in the playoffs, when you play a team as many as 7 times in a row, they will shamelessly just straight up not guard Ricky Rubio and make him make shots because he can't. And he's there last year in the playoffs, there was that one game where he did catch fire, and I think he scored like 29 points, hit a bunch of threes. But that's once every 10 times out, and you're willing to take that risk. You'll also just put Rudy Gobert in the high pick and roll, draw him away from the rim, and just go at him over and over and over again. So I think that they're just in an interesting spot because they're not bad enough to be able to draft another guy to be better than Donovan Mitchell. And I don't know how you sign a guy better than Donovan Mitchell. I don't know how you get an asset that's better than Donovan Mitchell. The other teams I have on my list, I think the Pelicans are stuck because they've just been handcuffed by Anthony Davis. And now when he's gone, where do you go from there? I don't really know. I mean, they already got rid of DeMarcus Cousins. They already got rid of Julius Randle. They added Julius Randle, excuse me. But now they have no Anthony Davis. Where do you go from there? I just don't know. It actually could be a benefit from them because they could be the worst team in the league next year, which actually would be better than being where they're at right now. The other teams I listed that I think are stuck, I think the Wizards are stuck because they just signed John Wall to the ultimate supermax, and then John Wall
falls over
10 times the catastrophic luck of Colter Nuanez,
which is really bad. And I
just don't know how you get out from under that contract. And then I also think that like Bradley Beal, he's a really good player. He's an all-NBA type player, but I still don't think he's good enough to be your number one. He's a great number 2, but he's not good enough to be your number 1. So I think that the Wizards are stuck. The Thunder, we talked about that yesterday. If the Thunder lose to the Blazers, and it's basically one and done in the playoffs to the Jazz and then the Blazers back-to-back years, I think you have real questions on what's the future of your team if you already have 2 of the 12 or 13 best players in the entire NBA and you can't get out of the first round. That's the definition of being stuck. And then the last team I wrote down, I think this one will probably surprise you. I think the Philadelphia 76ers are stuck. I think that I should rephrase. The Philadelphia 76ers are marching towards Judgment Day. They have to figure out, they have to make a choice. I truly don't think they're going to be able to afford, nor will they actually, or will those two guys be able to coexist between Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid.
You're making a judgment based on basketball on one hand, but also on personal relationship on another. And if you're right on both counts, then you're right. Also, I mean, what does it mean to be stuck? Like, if you are the Toronto Raptors stuck because they've been the 1 or the 2 seed but never, ever come close to even having a sniff of a championship? I don't know. Like, this is something that Ryan Russillo says all the time. He's like, look, you want to get better, but how are you going to be better than what you are if you're the 1 or the 2 seed in your conference and you are, and you're still in such a gap? And who are you getting rid of and who are you bringing in to all of a sudden go better? Like, if you're the 76ers and Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid can figure out a working relationship, even if they're not best buddies, even if they don't necessarily like each other, but if they can go out and play together, it doesn't get to the level of downright, hate or whatever. And you're the 3 seed in the East year in and year out. That's not stuck to me. That's
right.
That's maybe it's not meeting your potential because of how good these guys should be, but so yeah, I'm not ready to say that
I'm
yet.
talking about it way more on a basketball front than I am on a personal front.
Okay.
Because that podcast I listened to with Brett Brown, when he sat down with Zach Lowe, he said that they have become way more amicable and even pleasant with each other over the last year or so. I just think it comes down to 2 things. First of all, stylistically, I think that if you want Ben Simmons to be his best, you got to surround him with dudes who run the floor and fill the lane and dudes who can shoot. And if you want Joel Embiid to be his best, you have to play through him. I think you have to play. He's got to get the ball. You come down the court, he gets the ball. And they did that quite often this year. I mean, he was 3rd in the league in scoring, 4th in the league in scoring. But I also think that we talked about this last week. It's not just the hierarchy of players, but I think you have to have a true defined alpha dog to be an NBA champion. And is Ben Simmons ever going to default to Joel Embiid? Because Joel Embiid is certainly not going to default to anybody.
Yeah. Well, who's the alpha dog on Golden State?
It's a very good question, man.
I mean, if you have
the demonstrative guy
enough,
that wants you to think he is Draymond Green, but it's actually Stephen Curry.
It is, but he's more just a dog than an alpha dog. Like, I don't think guys defer to him. I think he is confident enough in himself that he defers to them and thereby makes it all work. But usually, like we talked about with, say, Jordan's Bulls or whatever, as good as, a top 50 player all time was Scottie Pippen and a bunch of other all-stars that came in who were legitimately good in their home. Like, Harper could have been a star on almost any other team, and he was a good player for the Bulls, but he was way down the pecking order, Tony Kukoc, same, but they needed the structure of having Michael Jordan as the absolute unquestioned leader in every facet on that team. Some teams need that, but other teams you don't have to have that, I think.
Name an NBA champion that didn't have an alpha dog.
Golden State.
It's surely the best argument against what I'm saying, but if you go through just the annals of the NBA, especially since the merger, even when you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and James Worthy on the team, Magic Johnson's team, Larry Bird's team, Isaiah Thomas's team, Michael Jordan's team, Tim Duncan's team, Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, that's an interesting one. And that's why I think that was so mercurial, is because you hit this fever pitch, you win 69 games, and you just destroy the playoffs. I mean, that year is the only year anybody's ever gone undefeated, right? They just walked to the championship.
But let me ask
you, then it all fell apart.
Is there a difference between being an alpha dog and being a leader? Because I would say that maybe the most important piece, the most important piece from a team standpoint when Golden State was winning their first championships was David West. Like, David West gave good minutes, contributed on the basketball team, wasn't close to being their best or most important player.
No.
But is the most respected, liked, quote-unquote glue, but that's underselling
But
it.
he's also the enforcer, too.
Veteran. He's an enforcer. He does all kinds of things on and, more importantly, off the floor in the locker room for that team that I think bolstered them in ways that nobody watching the games understands.
Yeah.
And so if you have a guy like that, it doesn't have to just be your best player, has to be your leader, has to be the guy who's setting the tone. It's normal that's that. It's normal that the quarterback is the guy who's rallying the troops.
Right.
But Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls, and we could talk more about that. But that and football's obviously different because you got so many guys, position groups. I get all that. So it's going to happen more that way like you're talking about, but I don't think it has to be that.
Yeah, I just think it's really hard to build around a guy that isn't that. It's not impossible, but I think it's really hard.
Yeah.
But Ben Simmons is going to have to become that sort of guy if he wants to fulfill his true potential.
And here's the other thing. I think Ben Simmons is a great player. I think he's a great competitor. I don't know if he's a killer.
See, this is what's so interesting is I go so back. Ben Simmons is so up and down, just in terms of his body language, the way he acts on the court. Sometimes I watch him and he looks exactly like you'd expect an alpha from Australia to look.
Right.
And then sometimes he's sitting on the bench chewing on his towel, not paying attention to anything.
The other thing, though, he's not the Australian in the way that we think, when we're talking about. He's from Australia, and he lived in Australia, but he's like, I don't know. He's multinational.
Right, yeah. Totally.
For sure. One other team I think is stuck, Minnesota.
Yeah, yes.
I think the Timberwolves are.
Here's a great example of how hard it is to build around a dude who's not an alpha. Karl Anthony Towns is not. But how can you say that you want to get rid of him? I mean, he's a 7-foot guy who can shoot threes.
He's so great, and he's unbelievably talented. And I don't even necessarily use the Jimmy Butler thing as much of an Jimmy Butler is. I'm still trying to figure out what and who Jimmy Butler is in general. But I think that they thought that they were getting a guy in Wiggins who just hasn't panned out to be the guy that he was, supposed to have been or whatever. Still a good player, but to have Karl Anthony Towns and those two guys there, you are just staring at, the second round of the edge of mediocrity for Minnesota for years to come, it seems to me.
Wiggins is another great example. I mean, Wiggins is so talented, but what is he? So, sometimes you're thinking, man, this guy is like the evolutionary Scottie Pippen or something. But then other times, I mean, again, I don't really obsess over the analytics, but when you talk about the analytics, 538 Sports did a deal on defensive rotations, and it's basically like grading film when it comes to football. Like this offensive lineman graded out at 89% or whatever. Andrew Wiggins was 365 out of 365 players in the NBA in terms of defensive rotation efficiency. He's the worst defensive rotator in the league. That's crazy. Yeah, how can you invest $100 million in a guy who doesn't know how to rotate on defense? Who's playing for Tom Thibodeau?
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not a good situation. They're stuck. That's a great one. Here is the best thing you could say about how stuck the Timberwolves are. They got two transcendently talented number one picks on their team, and I didn't even think of them when I was making my list because they're so irrelevant.
That's all you need to know. Quick break. I think we're going to get Ryan Bradshaw in here. We're going to see if we can track him down to talk about the 3-on-3 tournament. And, maybe Frank Clark. And, I haven't even gotten to 2 Game 7s in the NHL tonight. All of it coming up next.
Alpine Touch is legendary around the state of Montana for providing delicious seasonings for every grilling occasion. Now, Alpine Touch offers so much more, from a savory new barbecue sauce to spicy pepper blends to tasty barbecue rubs. In addition to the classic, Alpine Touch has a variety of seasoning salts for whatever you need to spice up. Now that the holidays are over, Alpine Touch makes a perfect thank you gift to show your friends and relatives you love them. Alpine Touch, available at retail locations around Montana or online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
At Opportunity